You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, 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 golazo.
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
And welcome to Soccer Today, presented by Passion Soccer Boutique, always open at passionsoccer.ca. Joining us today to talk about the Ottawa Fury, their season in the USL, their head coach, Paul Dalglish. Paul, how are you this morning?
Very good. How are you?
Doing amazing.
All right, Paul, Duane, Rollins here. Let's jump in. Right now, the Fury, after a bit of a slow start, I think, to the season, sitting on 24 points, just 3 points back of that red line, but with a few games in hand for the teams that they're chasing above. How confident are you that you can close that gap down the final third of this season and get the Fury into the playoffs?
Yeah, it's what we want to achieve and something we've been focused on. This is a fantastic league. We've been really, really impressed with the quality since we came here, and every single game is a challenge. So I believe the fight for these playoffs is going to come down right to the wire. I think it's probably going to be decided on the last day of the season, such as the parity of this league. So we're focused on it. There's going to be ups and downs. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, and we've got to be prepared for that. We're going to win games that maybe we didn't think we were going to win or didn't deserve to win. We're going to lose games we maybe deserve to win, and you've just got to be mentally strong and be prepared for that, prepared for the roller coaster, and at the end of the season, it evens itself out, and we hope we're the team that are in those playoffs.
All right, fair enough. You did actually touch on this a minute ago for my next question. You did mention that the parity has been refreshing and surprised you a little bit. You have the unique perspective of having seen the NASL last year, gone into USL this year. There's a lot of questions about how those two leagues compare. From your perspective, about 2/3 of your first season in USL, is the comparison? Does it surprise you? Is it about the same level? What do you think of the two leagues?
Well, I think the USL has a better record against the NASL teams. I think in the Canadian Championships we beat Edmonton, and I think in the Open Cup in the big game, Cincinnati beat Miami. So the record over recent times has been favourable to the USL, and I think the reason for that is I think it's a different type of football. And what I've realised in the USL is that every single game is competitive regardless of the score, until the last minute. I think we have found that I think we played 19 games now. I think there's only been 2 of those that have been decided by 1 goal or more. And when you get that goal, and if you don't get that second goal or the third goal, then teams fight and try, and there's a lot of young players in the USL, and you keep trying and fighting, and you really do need to knock teams out before they stop fighting back, and that's what's made it a real challenge. And you have to have players that are ready to fight for 90 minutes. And I think if you look in the league, especially in our conference, it's a very, very it comes down to parity, and there's a lot of teams that are about the same, but the teams that tend to be at the very, very top are the teams that have the difference makers, the people that take advantage of key moments. I think all the teams at the top, most of the teams at the top have a goal scorer that's got 14, 15 goals, and it's those key moments in these really, really tight games that are the difference between the teams that are at the top and the teams that aren't.
Ottawa's won 3-1 over the last 5 games. USL is a long season. It's big conferences as well. 15 teams first 8 makes the playoffs. Haven't been in a different type of championship with the NASL and the way it's constructed with the spring season and fall season. Was it welcomed when you went back to basically almost a single table type of league this year?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we enjoyed the NASL. We're enjoying the USL. The one thing that I don't really want to do is get involved in a kind of back and forth between, you know, the USL and the NASL. We're really happy we made the decision for the USL, and we're really happy with the kind of longer season, not playing each other as many times, bigger table. More teams make the playoffs. It gives more people more involvement in the league for longer periods, and we're really, really happy with the decision we made. And as you said, it's much more like an MLS format with the amount of teams in the conference and the amount of teams that make the playoffs.
The age average of USL is very young. It's hovering around the 21-year-old as we're speaking. What can you tell us about those young players across the league and in your team that are looking for a platform, and that platform is USL?
Yeah, I think if you look at it, it's in North America. If you look at the college sports system in America, people love seeing the top next generation of talent, and you get those in the USL. You get this top generation of the next generation of talent coming through. Alphonso Davis played in the USL. There's a list that goes on, but you also get the Joe Coles and the Schaefers and players like that, your Drogbas and Sean Wright Phillips, and you get top experienced players as well. I think there's a wonderful balance in the USL between the top next generation and maybe the top players that are at their end of the career, and it's a real wonderful melting pot of different generations, and I think that's replicated with the products on the field has been fantastic to watch.
Paul, you of course have a partnership with the Montreal Impact in its first season. You also have your own goals in terms of competitiveness, and you want to have those younger players that they are being loaned down to you earn their place. Can you just sort of describe what that relationship is like working with the Impact and what your philosophy is in trying to incorporate those loan players?
Well, we're both two fiercely independent clubs. Montreal Impact are an independent club. They have their own identity. Much are we. We're the same. We have the same mindset where we're an independent club. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to partner and just really see how it goes for the first year, and then meet at the end of the first year and then decide what worked, what didn't work, and whether it made both our organisations better. So it's been a very, very understanding and open relationship between the two teams. They've not forced anything on us. We've not forced anything on them. It's been a really, really pleasurable experience and something we're going to sit down at the end of the season and go through the pros and cons and decide whether we want to do it again going forward.
Back a little bit here. How important were those two games with TFC and getting that win over TFC in the Canadian Championship? What did that do to the players' confidence in sort of helping you in your market?
Yeah, I think it's as a player that's playing in the USL, I think probably most of our locker room feel that, you know, if they were given the opportunity that they could fight for a roster spot on an MLS team. I think most players in the USL genuinely believe that, and they should believe that. So we get to play against when we get to play as also Fury against the MLS teams, use that as a measuring stick to see where they're at, and you normally see a really, really intense performance from the USL teams when you go into that, and it was the case. I mean, we were lucky enough to beat Vancouver in the first year, and then we did it again against Toronto in this year, and it really is. You see what the players can really push themselves to if when they want to push themselves to that level. And what I like to do as a coach is use that as a measure to say, look, this is what you can achieve when you're in the right mindset for a game. And as we've seen, we've been lucky enough with the fantastic support behind us to years in a row beat MLS opposition here.
Paul, when you're looking at your team, there has been a growth in the confidence in the roster this season. A lot of confidence and great result has been built with a tough beginning of the season. What can you tell us about the group of guys you have right now that are battling week in, week out?
Yeah, it's a fantastic locker room. It's a really good mindset. We recruited based on character, and what we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that we had a team that had good character, because we're not only are we trying to play with intensity and play with aggression, but we're also trying to grow the game, and we needed people that were good in the community and to help us grow. And I think if you look at our average attendance, it's been steadily increasing, and that's much work to not what the guys have only done on the field, but what they've done off the field as well. This is a group where we've scored many goals. One of the leaders in the league at scoring in the last 15 minutes of games, and that shows you the character that they've got. Where we need to improve between now and the end of the season is the key moments. This league is being decided on key moments. It's teams that are taking the chances against teams that maybe not taking the chances, are the difference between who's in what position in the league, and we've got to really focus on taking our chances over the next 13 games if we want to be known as a real contender.
Paul, talk a little bit about how much exposure the Fury are currently getting in the market. Obviously, the Red Blacks, which you have share an ownership with, they're very successful last year, defending champions in the CFL. They get a lot of attendance, a lot of attention. Not quite as big numbers for the Fury, but explain to us whether you see growth there, whether you see greater penetration in the market, and how high you think the ceiling is for soccer in Ottawa.
Yeah, I think it's getting bigger and bigger. Obviously, the Red Blacks are a machine. They sell out, every game almost, and obviously the defending champions last year. So that is a certain type of entertainment that the city of Ottawa provides, and obviously we're all part of the same organisation. The Fury provide an alternative to that, and we probably have a different fan base to the Red Blacks, and I think it's really important that we provide that niche in the market. One of the things that we've done in Ottawa is we provide a free ticket for everybody that plays youth soccer in the Ottawa area. So if anybody that plays youth soccer wants to come and watch the pros, then we provide that opportunity for them. And I feel that is a key role that we part in the soccer community of growing the game, is giving players that love the game the opportunity to come and watch pros and aspire to be one of them one day, if that is their wishes. If they just play recreationally, then maybe it's just to come and enjoy and hang out with the players. We allow all the youth players on the field at the end of the game to interact with the players, and it's a real community club, and that's been shown in our fan base and shown by the loyalty of the support group that comes to watch the guys play.
There's been a lot of talk about the MLS2 clubs in USL, and I'm not going to make you put your opinion out there on whether they should be there or should be not. But what I am curious about is whether, as a manager, you prepare for those games against the MLS2 teams differently, or whether you treat them the same. We were talking to someone from Cincinnati the other day that suggested that a lot of times they can't really predict what lineups they're going to see, so that affects their preparation. So I'm wondering what your perspective on that is.
Yeah, it's impossible to prepare for them, because you submit a 27-man roster 48 hours before the game, and you can be dual rostered. So I think when we played Bethlehem Steel, Yarrow came on for the first team the night before and then started against us the next day. So you've got an idea of 27 players that could be involved in the game, but you've got no idea which MLS players are going to be chosen. So you could go into a game preparing to play against a fully USL team, or you could be going in to play against people from the first team roster that are getting minutes. So it's very, very difficult to prepare tactically for the MLS2 teams. And if you speak to the MLS2 teams, they will give an argument as well that they find it very difficult to prepare for any game, because if they're using first team players in the game, they'll be training with the first team, and then they won't be training with the team all week, and then they come and play games at the weekend. So I think we face challenges as independent teams when we play the MLS2 teams, and the MLS2 teams face challenges as well. So it is one of the toughest things to deal with in the USL.
All right, we're currently, and we'll wrap up with this one, we're currently at a very unique sort of period of time for Canadian soccer, and you have sort of a unique perspective. You grew up around the highest levels of the game, obviously. You've played in the U.S., you've coached in the U.S., now you've been in Canada for a little bit of time. What is your perspective on what the state of the game is overall in Canada right now, and whether or not you see it progressing forward?
Well, it's already taken over. Hockey is the most played game in Canada. So the numbers are there at the youth level for the game to advance. And I think if you looked at the Gold Cup showing, the level of Canadian players is improving. Alphonso Davis is a really exciting talent. There's a lot of people working in the game now that are passionate about it, of growing the game. One of the biggest challenges that Canada's always going to face is the environment, the conditions. It's not a country where you can play 12 months of the year in most of Canada. So if you want to, there's no, you can be the best coach in the world, you can have a child with the best attitude in the world, but if they can't play 12 months of the year, then it makes it very difficult to compete with people that are playing 12 months of the year. So one of the most important things I believe in is growing the infrastructure, making sure that dome space isn't too expensive, making sure that there is accessibility to indoor facilities in the off season, and because when I came through, and a lot of the great players that I played with when I was younger, and then you see them going on to become world-class stars, we didn't really get coached. Like, coaching is overrated in young ages. The most important thing is playing and time and spending as much time with the ball as possible. And I think that if I was to say the one problem that Canada needs to solve, it would be time on fields and facility space so kids can play more.
Free players, I'm a big advocate for that. I think the reason Canada is so dominant in hockey, not beyond the culture and the history, is the fact that kids play on the street with balls all the time, and they learn their skills there without coaches prying in and making them defend themselves and do things that they're not necessarily instinctively doing. Anyway, Paul, we do thank you for your time. We are cheering for the period going.
Yeah, the one thing.
Go ahead. Go.
Just on that, the one thing I would say is if you're playing with a coach when in a younger age, then you play with the fear of failure because you're getting told what's right and wrong. And what it does, it makes you less adverse to take risks. So if you're playing unstructured hockey, football, whatever you want to say, then you're more likely to take risks, and you're not going to hold yourself as accountable if you fail the first time you try something. And that's how you get creative, is by failing and then working out the answers as you go along. And as I said, I think that if I was to, hockey's probably very similar, the most similar sport to soccer. And playing without the fear of failure is the most important thing for the advancement of the game.
You're preaching to the choir, and I do appreciate that. All right, Paul, we'll be cheering for the Fury on the way in, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks for your time. Thanks very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
And we're back on Soccer Today, presented by Passion Soccer Boutique. For the love of the beautiful game, always open at passionsoccer.ca. Duane, I kind of have to agree with, especially the last topic, the last opinion that Paul mentioned, where, let's play more, but let's play more freely. Let's play more with sometimes no rules, but sometimes, you know what? Next goal wins. Doesn't matter if it's 20-1.
You know what? I've been beating that drum for a long time. And it was a hockey analogy. I don't know how clear that was. I think road hockey is the number one reason why we produce so many great hockey players in this country beyond, well, there's other reasons too, infrastructure and that, but I think it really matters. I mean, think about that as a kid growing up. At least I did. I used to play 6 hours of road hockey a day, and some of the guys I played with became, playground legends through that. And maybe evolved and played at decent levels of the game because they learned stick handling skills, they learned shooting skills, they learned how to control like a hard moving puck. Now we're talking about a different sport here, but I think that the premise is the exact same.
Here's the analogy to the soccer world, Duane. Look at Neymar. Look at Leo Messi. Look at Cristiano Ronaldo. Look at Ronaldinho. Look at Fat Ronaldo. Look at any single individually skilled, amazing player that we always regard them as the best ever. What was their childhood like? What was Maradona doing? What was Pele doing when he was 5 years old? He was out there 12 hours a day with new shoes on in a dirt kind of field with a ball and just working on his skills. And that's the pretty much one thing a place like Canada cannot necessarily compete with is kids playing this sport for 10 hours a day every single day of the year for about 7 to 8 years until they get into organized soccer.
Yeah. Look, I think the other sports the same thing. Bjorn Borg, the famous tennis player, learned by hitting a ball against his garage door back in Sweden, right? Like just bang, bang, bang for like hours a day because he enjoyed it, he loved it, it was passionate for him. It's the same thing. You got to install that passion and that love and that sort of instinctive desire to go out there and create and try things in whatever sport it is. Look at the success of basketball in the United States. I think is largely geared around the fact that putting up hoops in certain neighborhoods in the U.S. creates this environment and culture around the game that drives more and more people to it. And it plays out around the world. And football is, especially in impoverished places in the world, this is why you see so many people come out of it, because it's really all they have, right? They can't be playing video games all day in some parts of the world, but they can kick a ball around. That one ball that's shared is the pipeline to the rest of the world for a lot of those kids. And I think that's a brilliant thing. And here in Canada, we face that challenge of how, when you have all these other things around and all these other options around, how do you get these kids and sort of get the helicopter parents through them too, which I think is a big problem in a lot of youth sports in the Western world. Like, how can you convince the parents that their kids aren't going to, die basically if they let them play in a park by themselves for an hour? And that's we're getting into sociological stuff now, but it's a frustration for me, and I think it's absolutely bang on and one of the biggest things holding us back. We don't need more programs. What we need at the higher levels, once you get above 14, 15, yes. But when you get below that, no, what we need is more play. We need the kids on the ball more.
Speaking of development in Canadian environment, a little update on Balou Tabla. When we finished the show yesterday, Duane, well, Balou didn't show up to practice yesterday. Yes, he's injured.
Boy.
And no show at practice. And the Impact made it clear that while he was kind of supposed to be here, and he's not here. More on the situation very soon. And, well, apparently there was a conversation. That's according to many different sources. Romain Chouet of 91.9 Sports and other sources, Pascal Milano of La Presse and other sources have reported that there might have been even a conversation between veteran Asun Kumara and Balou Tabla, and Balou is supposed to show up at practice today. It's 10:23. We're live here on Soccer Today. If you're listening to the podcast version, we assume Balou is going to be on practice today, but let's just put it this way. It seems like a situation like we've seen across the world of football many, many times, Duane, where the agent and the player have an agenda and the team's agenda is different. And the clash was, missed practice yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. And look, the more troubling thing that I found yesterday, the stuff that came out after we did the show, was Piatti's comments. Because when you have a player of his stature that's played at that level, which is clearly, the leader and the best player on the Impact, saying that quote unquote Balou has a lot yet to still learn.
Quite level-headed.
That's what would probably mean.
Like Piatti's quite reserved and quite level-headed though. So for him to say something at that level, saying like, look, yeah, it's all well and beautiful, but got a lot of things to work on, kid. Well, it comes from a place of love from Piatti. He's a deeply nice person. Having more time in the last week than ever before in the All-Star game, I have to say I'm quite impressed by not just the player, but the man that Piatti is. And for him to say something like, I can understand him, but it starts with the work, not the other way around. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's the way that they're going. I mean, there's, as you say, we've seen this at higher levels all the time. I'm reminded of Yaya Toure and his agent last year, and how eventually Toure put his head between his tail between his legs, went back and did the work and got back into Pep's good graces, and now earned another contract in Manchester City out of it. That's a different level, different scale, but it's kind of the same concept. You have a player that's kind of putting his own needs above that of well, maybe not even putting his own needs above it, thinking he's putting his own needs above that of his team, and getting sort of burnt for it and getting a bad reputation for it. I mean, if you're doing this at 18, that's going to scare off teams alone right there.
But the idea, I think, behind it too is for this development. Maybe he might think that somewhere else is going to get better working condition. Well, things have changed, and if you're looking at the Impact's development and the academy, and if you're looking at the facilities, there's not that many places in the world where you get better ones. Maybe a few clubs per league that have better infrastructures as the Montreal Impact right now. Atlanta's infamously amazing, brand new, just opened. The same for Toronto's pretty damn well built. Montreal's on the par. When it's all done, it's going to be up there. And, well, you might not have that at Bologna. I apologize. But, yeah, infrastructures-wise, it's hard to beat the academy system right now in place in a few different teams in Major League Soccer. Coaching wise, that side of tactical wise, yes, he might be onto something, but still, you have to let the work speak for itself first. And I think that's what fellow teammates have tried to tell him. And I think that's what Piatti's trying to tell him in a nicer way. And I think that's where there might be a difference is, look, the Impact doesn't necessarily disagree with wanting to eventually move Baloo on. It might be worth it for them down the road. I asked the same damn question to Don Garber last week, and that's what he said. So the thing is, it's the offer was not necessarily what the Impact and Major League Soccer would agree on right now to be what Baloo's worth is, and that's what they're waiting for. An offer worth their value that they have in mind for him.
Well, right now, look, there's no doubt in my mind that Baloo could benefit from a move to another environment in some capacity. I'm just not too sure it's the exact move that he might have in mind. I think he'd be better off getting consistent playing time in the USL for a little while to see whether he can dominate that level to the point that we think he can. And if that's the case, then yeah, sure, maybe he might move on. I think he would also, based on what we've seen over the last week or so, I'm going to question his maturity level at this particular point. So maybe getting out of something comfortable and forcing him to live on his own and to prove himself that he can live on his own and succeed and excel on his own might be something that is better for his development too, because if he's going to struggle with that, and we've seen that countless times before, when a young player with immense talent goes away and just flounders, it's sometimes as much to do with the off the pitch stuff as it is to do with the on the pitch stuff. And if we find that out sooner rather than later, then maybe it can be addressed. But, if we wait a couple of years, then it might not be. And it might be too late at that point. Look, I've been 18 too. I was, 7,000 years ago, but I remember it. And I remember just desperately wanting to move on. And the grass was much greener where I was going. And I made a lot of mistakes when I did eventually go a year later and we're talking not about sports here, we're just talking about life. So I get that from a young person's perspective. But I think maybe he needs to get some better advice is kind of what I'm getting down to. And I know that I'm sounding like a grumpy old man lecturing to the kid right now, but there's lots of grumpy old men lecturing to the kid right now, and he should hopefully listen to some of them.
Well, that's probably true, and probably a lot of people that have no idea, like us, to give their opinion about the situation. But what really struck me yesterday was the fact that his agent was kind of public with his talks to Romain Chouet, saying, look, we want Baloo to leave. And that's where you see it might not even be the player. It might be who's representing the player. And like you mentioned, giving not necessarily bad advice, but advice that are not necessarily focused on the team. And I said yesterday on the show, with the North American bias here, it's the world of soccer. We're talking about football, right? We have a North American bias because of where we have been brought up. And we always been told, all my coaches in all the different sports I've played and all the teams that I've seen, and professionally as well, here are Big Four leagues, it's always about the team, not about the individual. So when an agent tries to better the situation of his individual client, it rubs people the wrong way. And I think that's the sentiment still today is we kind of get it, but doesn't have to be at the detriment of the team.
No, absolutely. And look, Yeah, it's a troubling situation right now, and there's immense talent there. I think that sometimes when you're full of piss and vinegar is a saying that I say a lot of times, and I think Baloo is full of piss and vinegar, which doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't something there for him to be proud of and to feel confident about. But some humility might go a long way in this particular case. And listening to, like I said, the Piatti stuff, to go back to that to me was what solidified my belief that he might be getting bad advice. And the other thing you have to consider when you're thinking about this, when you're hearing an agent being so actively involved with this, is what does that agent have to gain? And I don't know this gentleman, and I'm not suggesting that he's doing anything unbetold, but there is a literal benefit to selling a player to an agent in the commission. And is that what the motivating factor is here to get out of Montreal? Is a paycheck for this guy and maybe a sell-on paycheck down the line if he can get a further sale in Europe? That's what would worry me. That's what, hopefully there might be a third party coming in there that might be able to look at this and give him independent advice from this gentleman, because I think there's some warning signs, there's some lights going off here that make me concerned.
Don't tell me it's all about the money.
Show me the money.
Isn't it always about the money, no?
Show me the money. It's about the money here. Passion Soccer Boutique. Visit it 24 hours a day.
passionsoccer.ca. No,
there you go.
We had a match yesterday, Duane. Quite boring match, actually. Manchester United, Real Madrid, the UEFA Super Cup, and for the fourth time ever, Real Madrid has won the Super Cup.
Well, jolly for them. What's a trophy? And I'm sure that at the end of the year that they'll count that as part of their counts if they have an historic season. And this is Real Madrid is fascinating this year, especially now that Neymar is out of Barcelona. You'd have to think that they're the faraway favorite within La Liga. As we said last year, at the end of last year, that we are looking at a team that I think that is already in the conversation to be amongst the best of all time. Whether or not they can factor that in. And I think that what they need to do, if you look back at that 2009 Barcelona team that won the 5 cups, I think that might be what Real Madrid is thinking of. And one of those 5 cups was the Super Cup. So that's kind of the one important factor of this that might be in Real Madrid's mind, is they wanted to win that so that they could continue this little romp. And of course they have the they can go for 6 because they have the MLS All-Star Game trophy as well. So
was there a trophy? That's what I was wondering. I was trying to remember if there was a trophy. I was like, was there a trophy?
They used to give a trophy, but I think that it became so embarrassing and they got made fun of so much, especially in social media when they gave it out, that this year they just walked straight off the field. So if there was a trophy, they gave it in the dressing room. But that, like I said, that 2009 Barca team, which is considered amongst the best ever, I think, and they won the 5 trophies, and it was a historic thing for them at that time. That rivalry is such that I suspect that motivates Real Madrid a little bit. So that's probably what is important for them. But I think the other side of it is we saw how dire United is going to be to watch this year. And there's talks today that they're back in touch with Ibra to try and get him signed for another year, which...
Is he even ready to play? Like I thought like he destroyed his knee. He was supposed to be gone for like 9 months or something. That's like just a few months ago.
Well, it smells like desperation is what it smells like. I mean, look, United, I think United got guilty. And look, I have a blue bias. Everyone knows that. So take it for whatever grain of salt you want here. But I do think that there was a level of complacency that happened within United circles, on the academy side, on their recruitment side, on the fact that they let Fergie sort of do what he wanted for the last couple of years there so that he could get his one last championship. And I said at the time, and I was roundly criticized by people who thought I was just being a bitter blue, that the United was making a mistake by some of the signings. They made older signings that gave them that one final title so that they could send Fergie out in the high note, but kind of handicapped them for a couple years after that. And it didn't help that Moyes came in and didn't really do much with the time that he had or the resources that he was given. It was an impossible situation for Moyes. We can now, I think, look back and agree on. But yeah, you look at football doesn't stand still. You know, United was for 15 years the biggest name in the world's game, I would have to say. They were absolutely the biggest name in England. They were the team you could just check off year after year, would be right there at the top. They're not there anymore, and they might not even be number one in their own city in terms of what interest exists within outside of that. You look at the transfer window this year with Pep in place at City, and yes, I'm a City fan. I always say this when I talk about them, but you look at what's coming in right now, I don't think you can argue that United's had a better window. United's not had a better window in a while. And that speaks to the evolving nature of the game. And the fact that they're chasing another old player just to plug a hole for a year, yeah, they might get in that conversation. Maybe they get out of the group stage in the Champions League. That adds some money. That's important, but it's not going to get them to the level where they were, the 99s, the 08s. They're not going to get back there doing the strategies that they are right now. And I'm not too sure that have fully adjusted to the new reality where there are more than 2 or 3 teams in England that are competing with them in any real way, where they can't even be guaranteed to be the number one choice in their own city anymore, which is something that I think even when City got the money a decade or so ago, they didn't anticipate happening, but here we are.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense when you're looking at it with hindsight now. It's like, yeah, they put himself in a situation where the top of the academy was kind of drained, and you kept putting patches to that hole with big signings to get that final Sir Alex Ferguson championship. And yeah, it was the handicap. And you're right. What are the latest big names out of the academy for United? Januzaj? Yeah, that didn't last long.
They got the kid now, but other than that,
well, Rashford now, yeah, but before that,
yeah.
What was it like? And just the amount. You're right. It's not what it used to be.
We're talking about the class of '99, which was an historic class, and even as a City fan, I can.
That's the class of Beckham and company, right?
Yeah, you got Giggs and you got Scholes and you got Beckham, and yeah, it was historic class and one of the best ever produced in any academy, maybe in the world. I mean, obviously Barca would have some arguments there at times, but certainly it was something to behold, and United fans quite rightly held on to that and still hold on to it in some regards. And I think that's part of the problem is that we just had King Kenny's kid on a minute ago, which always I find that surreal every time I talk to Paul. But anyway, Liverpool fell into that for years. I think that they got complacent. That they thought that they would always be capital L Liverpool, and well, they're not anymore. The world evolves, and I think United's just going through a bit of the same thing that Liverpool went through in the past. And we're now well past the time when people think of Liverpool as an automatic contending team because they never won a title within the Premier League era, and that takes them right out of that conversation now. Something that needs to be addressed.
All right, Duane, this weekend, Premier League starts once again. It all starts Friday afternoon. But until then, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to doing my research today on the Premier League because a lot of focus on MLS. Sounds like a bit of a cop-out answer, but I haven't had a lot of chance other than to follow the transfer windows a little bit to really dig deep into the league this year to see what I think of and to develop and evolve my opinions. And I always enjoy the couple of days when I'm sitting down there just before the season starts to figure out where I see things tracking up. But I am mostly counting the hours down to 2:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. Yes, Friday, where I will walk into Scallywags. I will order a Belgian Moon. I think it's Belgian. No, it's 3-speed there. It doesn't matter. A nice little light summery beer. And I sit down there in the upstairs patio and I raise a glass and say, welcome back to the Premier League.
Yeah,
my favorite addiction.
I thought you were going to go to, because if you had that same beer in the States, Duane, you know what it's called, right? It's Blue Moon. So that's the type of beer, of course, that you would like.
Quite a bit, but yeah, exactly.
Blue Moon.
There's
yes.
Yeah, it's a nice light beer. And I'll watch the City game this weekend too. But that first game and having that standalone game, it's not traditional. Friday night game over there. I know not everyone in England likes that, but from our perspective, to have that sort of jump shot standalone game, it's how we're used to watching seasons go. And I'm really excited to watch Leicester play Arsenal on Friday.
It's all about ratings, and I might be beating a dead horse here, but live sports on TV is one of the few things where you can almost guarantee the ratings, which advertisers are happy about, which that's why they pay money for. So don't be surprised if you have almost every night of the week now one of the top 4 in North America or Premier League or some sort of live sports all the time because, well, it guarantees ratings and advertisers are happy because live sport is one of the only DVR-proof TV products out there.
See, okay, before we go, I have a topic for you that off the top of my head. I was debating people online with this yesterday, and I have brought this up before, but it is something that that I like to throw out every so often. Could you ever see a day when the UEFA Champions League final is held outside of Europe? Because I believe, because it is mostly a TV product at this particular point in time, that there's an opportunity for them to really engage commercially with a lot more potential sponsors if they were to move that final to either China probably or the United States. So is that something that is completely blasphemous to bring up, or is it just thinking in the real world?
Well, the stretch of this game already takes place at a neutral spot, and it's been pretty much all across Europe, right? From Cardiff to Milan to London to pretty much everywhere. Stretch is not that big.
A couple years ago.
Yeah, the stretch is not that big to have it outside of Europe, right? It's just how it's marketed, and it all depends of how you want to do it, so you don't insult your fans at home. So you might have it in a weird time in North America to actually cater to your fans in Europe. Maybe I don't have a problem with it. If you do the other way around, well, maybe it's disrespectful to the league or to the event. You cannot have it, example, in New York and 7 p.m. Eastern. It's not fair for your fans in Europe. So you're going to have it in the afternoon in New York City. But if you do it with respect to your Europe fans, I don't see a problem. If you do it the other way around, well, there'll be like an outcry, a very public one.
If you started it at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. in New York City, you're talking about 8 or 9 p.m. at night. So primetime game over there, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the worst idea ever. Right? Look, this really gets people riled up whenever I bring it up. And it's like I said, it's not the first time I have, because a lot of people, it's Europe's championship. It's got to be in Europe. And look, I get that it's kind of crass and that the reasons for doing it are purely financial, but yeah, there's already been talk about that so-called 39th game. Which got shot down pretty soundly, and I think that had as much to do with the imbalance of how the schedule would look as anything else, because you have to play a team 3 times in there, and I don't think that the traditionalists in a single table like that, and I get that too. That is a fair point, but I can see something like that happening. I could also see the Super Bowl being played in London one day, and I don't think the difference between North American mindset and European mindset is if the Super Bowl was ever played in London, I don't think anyone would bat an eye over here. They'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And away we go.
Again, I think it depends what time it starts. It all goes on how you accommodate the diehards that could be offended by this situation. If you take care of that, yeah, exactly. You have it at 9 p.m. in London, so it's at like the afternoon here. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, there you go. Because we're used to it starts at 6:30 here anyway. So
yeah,
we started at 5 o'clock rather than 6:30. It's not a big deal. We can do that. But anyway, that's stuff that battles around the brain box when you're not in European season.
Duane,
so thank God European season started soon.
I don't think the day is far away where we might have more transatlantic sports team. It's an experiment that one rugby team in Toronto is having this year. The Wolfpacks. Wolfpacks. But I don't think it's something out of the realm of possibilities. Like travel, hopefully, we used to say this back in the day, but maybe one day it'll be easier to even travel down. Maybe planes will even get more efficient. You have to go with that. And maybe 10 years on the road, we have more intercontinental sports team, which would even make sense to have finals in here for soccer, or London for NHL, or a game in it. Having an NHL game in Scandinavia makes kind of sense, and having a American football game in London, where there's a somewhat of a history with the NFL Europe and the amount of NFL games regular season being played in London now, you kind of have the history there. So no, it would make sense. It's not something out of the realm of possibility for sure.
All right. Just like I said, stuff that battles around the brain box. All right. We want to talk a little bit about the Nashville ownership, that the Minnesota Vikings ownership came down. I think we should probably wrap the show up now, so maybe we'll leave that for another day. But I certainly, just real quickly on that, I'm intrigued by that market.
Birmingham, Alabama is getting in the USL team too. So you're looking at a USL continuing to grow, and with a lot of potential, with MLS bids on the road for a lot of places. Not saying Birmingham wants to be in Major League Soccer, but I'm just saying it's another team in USL. And USL, I'm not sure if this is still true to this day, but as of last year, it was the fastest growing soccer league in the entire world.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't think there's any upper limit on how many teams they're going to put in there, especially if they go to a D3, D2 situation. I do actually think that we will see eventually, or maybe even sooner rather than later, that they will institute some form of pro rel within that 2 and 3 as almost a trial to see whether it would work at an MLS level.
You know what?
10,
That's a
15
problem.
years down the line.
It might just be pro. It might not be no rel. Maybe you start in D3, and when you're big and good enough, you go to D2.
Yeah, I do wonder whether some of the, I did that poll, and I don't want to get into a pro rel talk too much, but I did a poll around the time that thing came out last week asking pro rel for USA hashtag supporters whether they'd be satisfied with a semi-open pyramid. So you have MLS 1, MLS 2. And there were some very loud negative voices, including a lot that were calling me an idiot, because that's what happens when you disagree with a pro reller and point out that there's flaws in their thinking. You get called an idiot because that's how they debate. But beyond that, what I found interesting about the reaction to that poll is a good 50% of them were either somewhat positive or completely positive to the idea of a semi-closed pyramid. They just wanted to see, that tells me that the vast majority of people that are sympathetic to pro rel just want to see some form of it and understand that the North American system is unique compared to these old systems in Europe, and they can't just take the square peg from Europe and shove it into the round hole of North America and have it work without there being some serious things that may go wrong. And I found that kind of reassuring that it was only like, for instance, in that poll, there was only like 5 polls, I should say, there was only 5% that were like, nah, I want MLS dead. And that is, there's 5% out there that do just want MLS dead, and that's all they care about. So, and they're generally the ones that are calling you an idiot.
True. All right. As always, you can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. Stay tuned to Soccer Today tomorrow, 10 a.m. as well, for another edition live of the show on YouTube, Facebook, anywhere you get your podcasts as well on demand. Thanks to Passion Soccer Boutique, always open at passionsoccer.ca. For the love of the beautiful game, find every single item you could ever dream for the love of the beautiful game, from gear to wear to making you look good. passionsoccer.ca. And as always, until tomorrow, I'm Kevin Laramee, and have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.